Dr. Keith, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
It's time for Love Your Bones, our first episode for 2024.
I think this time we have a lot of stuff to review this year.
We do. We do. I think we should start the year with like what do we call it? Our 101 episodes, kind of give the basics because, the one thing about breast cancer
hmm
is we get new people every day, like you do
Right.
for prostate cancer. So I think we're hopefully talking to some new people who've never watched our show before and people who need a refresher course. We're all here for everybody. But I think we should start with some of the basics about bone health because Black people just don't need to know what they need to know about it. And we think it's a white people's disease, an old white lady disease. And it's not. It's not.
hmm So I had so there was a question. Would you think about having the audience do a self-assessment?
Yeah,
And maybe,
remember we did that? Didn't we do that before?
yeah.
But let's do that. Yeah.
So
I
so
like your sweatshirt. I like your touch sweatshirt.
I know, but this is the year of exercise. That's why I
It
have my
is.
sweatshirt on. Because after I do my after we do this segment, I'm gonna go out there and get my walk in
All
before it
right.
starts
I'll
to
be right
snow.
there with you.
All right.
All right. I'm right there
Okay.
with you.
Okay. All right. Then I'm gonna get my 5 miles. My
And
10.
and it's gonna go beyond January. Hello, I
Yep.
call, when the people that come to the
Every
gym in
day.
January, the January people, because by February 1st, those folks are gone.
Mhm.
Not nowhere to be found. They had their cute little outfits that they went out and bought on sale after Christmas, and they show up in the gym for like 3 weeks and they're gone. So y'all, you gotta stick with it because that's a lot of bone health. It's just
Mm.
moving your body, right?
Yeah, and that's why it's important. It's important. People may ask why we even do this show because we
Yeah.
know that Black folks, Black Americans, Black folks are less likely to be screened for osteoporosis. That's one thing, and less likely to receive treatment. And what's interesting is this: we are more likely to have chronic conditions like hypertension, diabetes, on dialysis, those type of things. So this is why we want to make sure that really all Americans, but especially Black folks need to be aware of the importance of bone health.
Yep,
And
yep.
that's why
So
we need,
break it down. Break it down. What exactly is osteoporosis?
well, osteoporosis is a weakness or weakening of the bones. Let's just call it what it is. As we get older, our bones thin, right?
Okay.
So that's what we're talking about, the thinning or the weakening of bones. Um,
Okay.
After we get 30, men and women, their bone density starts to decrease. And since men on average have a higher bone mass, they have a tendency to have a higher weight, then they also have a higher bone mass. But in women, historically have a lower bone mass. I mean, lower mass and then a lower bone mass. But as we get to the 30s, as we start to get older, then our bone density starts to decline.
And 30 is not old. Okay. So we're
And 30 is
talking
not
like,
old.
yeah, we're talking about 30. Both of my daughters are now over 30. God bless them. But so it's not even about old age. Like I think people think about the decrepit old white lady up with her cane, with her back all hunched over. It's not that. It's 35, 40.
Mhm.
It's like young old people, right? Right.
Right. And then as we get older, and especially you start women start to reach that perimenopausal or menopausal area, they're less likely to get, I mean, 20 to 50% of Black women are less likely to get a bone mineral density screening. They don't. We don't even know what percentage of their clinicians, their primary care doctors start to talk to them about that. And
They're not.
why is
They're
this
not.
go ahead, sorry.
No, because they're not. They're not. I mean, I didn't have a bone density test till I actually had finished treatment for cancer. Not even during my cancer timing, But after my treatment was over is when I got my first both bone density test. And
And
I had never heard of it before. I've never heard of it before.
and have you broken any bones? I mean, just say, let's go back, even before you were diagnosed with breast cancer. Or had you
When
broken
I
any
when I was a kid,
when you were a
my
kid?
my senior year in high school, I broke my bone in my foot wearing platform. She was running down the stairs.
Uh-huh. Okay. So what about after you were diagnosed? No
Mm-mm.
fractures?
No fractures.
They,
I was very blessed.
yeah. It's interesting that if you look at it, there's over 300,000 non-fatal falls that people go to the emergency room on. That's
Wow.
how many times people are falling.
Wow.
And
At all ages, not just
yeah,
old people.
yeah, yeah. And we talk
Wow.
about Black folks showing up.
I talked to one of my girlfriends this morning, who's a good friend of mine, and she fell flat on her face coming out of her house in DC on the concrete and broke her front teeth out of her head. I'm like, well, how'd you fall? She's like, I don't remember.
Oh,
And
see,
she's like, how'd you fall, girl? I mean, and she walks every day. She's pretty active, but she fell. And now she's got to get all these scans and, and a lot of dental work. I mean, I think she mostly hurt her mouth, but
mhm.
the doctor told her if she had fallen sideways, she probably would have broken her skull because that's how hard the fall
Oh,
was. But
see
how
that?
does that happen? How do you fall? I said, and I asked her, have you had a bone scan?
But I mean, people, but it's interesting that you say that is people fall. That's what we call a non-fatal fall.
Right.
And so, and luckily she didn't break a wrist. She didn't break anything on that fall other than your teeth. But it's very this. Let's go back. We talked about the fact that osteoporosis is just generally speaking, the bones are getting thinner. Okay, and but there's something that people have to recognize. People think that osteoporosis is a white woman's disease.
Yeah, I did. Sure. The
Mhm.
hunched over white lady. Hmm.
Yeah, that's what that, and it's not. It's everybody's bones are thinning, men and women. But what's interesting is this: is that white women have a higher incidence rate for osteoporosis. That doesn't mean that Black women aren't getting osteoporosis. It's just that white women are getting it more. But then guess what? What happens after Black women or Black folks have fractures? Their outcomes are worse.
Their outcomes are worse. Their outcomes are worse. They're dying more readily and they're becoming destitute was the word that I found in the research. So meaning they can't work. They
Mhm.
can't resume their lives. More bad stuff happens to them. And often it identifies some of these other comorbidities that they may not have identified before, like high blood pressure, like diabetes. Like how many cases of diabetes are undetected or
Right,
unreported
right,
or
right.
undiscovered yet, right?
Mhm.
People are walking away like walking time bombs. So Keith, though, do people die? I mean, do people fall because of the osteoporosis, or do they fall and sort of then get tested for it and it's identified? Does the osteoporosis make people fall?
I mean, the most people fall because we lead a busy life. We're multitasking. You may misjudge the height of a step, your carpet. If and that's an interesting point that you bring up, but we'll talk about this segment, this section later. And maybe either later on in the year or later on in this on the webcast is home safety. That's why
Mhm.
we'll have a whole segment
Yeah, we're
this
gonna do a show about that. We'll do
home
a whole show
safety
about that.
and to prevent trips and falls. But
Yeah.
one thing I want to say is just to recap, just to make sure that people understand. Yes, the incidence of osteoporosis is higher with white women, but once Black women have a fracture, the death rate is higher, 24% higher. 19% have a higher risk of going into a nursing home and longer nursing.
Wow.
And then even worse, when you start looking at these numbers, that once they have that fracture, over 200, close to 245% higher risk of Medicare dependency.
So what does that mean? So you're more likely to be on
Medicaid
Medicaid
for a longer period of time.
because you hurt yourself more
Because
severely. You have
severe,
some more severe
yeah,
hurt
right.
you know,
They don't
impact.
screen, you're not diagnosed, you're not treated. Because remember, that's the whole process of once you have that fracture, you have to diagnose and then you have to be treated. And you know, how many people walking around on a broken foot and just walking around? So what do we know about osteoporosis? We have to think that it's a condition of the bones, that the bones become weaker, they're less dense, and they're more likely to break. Now, if we look at the United States, I mean, depending on the reports, over 8 million women are suffering from osteoporosis, and 2 million men suffer from osteoporosis.
Wow.
So we got total in the United States about 10 million people suffering. And again, I had mentioned before that even when we start talking about this incidence of incidence of osteoporosis, we talked about 300 fractures, 300,000 fractures from falls taking place, but it's about 1.5 million fractures every year in the United States. So even though we represent maybe 14% of those fractures, 14% of the population, we may have a higher incidence of fractures.
Yeah, we're falling more.
Yeah, we're falling more.
So all right, so we have this thing. So if you have a bone scan, what does that tell you, and when should you have it? So if our bones are starting to deteriorate or get weaker after age 30, I know for women, I thought that you're supposed to get a bone scan when you're going to menopause. Like, what is the timing for that, or should we be even waiting that long? It should be part of our annual checkup.
Well, see, this is very interesting that you bring up a point. So let's backtrack again. So when we start talking about the understanding the bone itself, the density of the bone, this is a bone mineral density test, right? And you'll hear these acronyms like BMD. So this BMD test, or bone mineral density test. And this is the best way to determine your bone health. So now we have that. Okay. And so when we're looking at bone health, our objective is to look for evidence of osteopenia, which is weakening, or osteoporosis. And
that's sort of osteopenia is like before you get to osteoporosis, right?
It's before you get to it. And so, and then when you have osteoporosis, increased incidence of your bone fracture. Now, the device that people will hear from their doctor will be the DEXA test or the DEXA scan. Okay. It's very similar to like an X-ray. So it's not a painful test. It's just about the same. Doesn't hurt. Same level of discomfort as an X-ray. So that's what we want to make sure. Okay. And then we want to also recognize that there's states like whether you don't eat enough, you don't exercise enough. So your diet and exercise, chronic diseases, even treatments for cancers can influence your bone strength and can cause bone loss. And the quality of life, your quality of life is so important. And if you have a fracture, then it can change your quality of life.
Yeah. If you can't do what you did before, if you're like, or even healing a long time, right? People go to nursing homes because they're taking too long to heal, and you can't drive, you can't do what you need to do in your life.
And so so you have this whole issue of it influences your quality of life, influences the efficiency of your life, and especially those single parent, those folks that are the primary caregiver in their family.
Right.
Those moms that are out there, they have to be healthy.
Right.
Because they're juggling a lot. Like your friend was your friend wasn't, she wasn't like, lollygagging, and she was just, she was
No,
Russian. She was probably Russian. She was thinking
going to
about
work,
the
rushing, going
multiple
to
things
work.
that she has to do, and then she just misjudged it.
Yeah, rushing, going to work, right?
That's it. And so now I wanted to go back just to think. So now before, what are some risk factors that play a role in osteoporosis? Let's
And
go back.
having healthy bones.
Yeah,
Well, all right. So I did my homework because I knew you were going to ask me
right.
that. But calcium,
Hmm.
um, exercise, vitamin D, um, regulating your alcohol consumption
Okay.
and no smoking,
Hmm.
um, you know, eating healthy with, calcium fortified foods,
Hmm.
like leafy greens, right?
Right.
To get your calcium. What am I missing? You tell me since you know the answer.
No, no, no. I mean, I think you're right on target. Um, you you gave everyone things that we can change.
Yep. Harper's
So,
trying to get my life.
okay, so we talked about physical activity because a lot of people think about it. They get in the car, they drive to work, they come home, and they're tired. And so, even though you've gone out and done a lot of things, there wasn't really a lot of physical activity. So the inactivity component, and that's where that exercise component came in. Then, guess what we know about Black folks and calcium?
Lactose intolerance.
Lactose intolerant. 75 to 80% of the Black people in the United States are lactose intolerant. But you'll hear somebody say, like, well, I eat ice cream. I say, well, yeah, ice cream, but how often do you eat ice cream? How often, where are you getting your calcium from?
Cheese, mac and cheese, yogurt,
But are they
right?
eating? Yeah, I don't disagree with that. So, if you talk about just the food, let me, before we talk about the foods, but let's talk about that. You said calcium. So where are you going to get, what type of foods would you eat to get the calcium that you need?
Cheese,
Cheese. So
milk, ice, and all the things that can give you lactose intolerance.
intolerance. So we know that
Right.
milk and cheese and
Right.
yogurt,
Right.
majority of Black folks, if
Right.
they're lactose intolerant, they're not eating those foods.
They're not eating them, right? Or not to the extent that they need to get
Mhm.
the calcium they need, right?
So then what foods do you think they're eating?
Well, I hope they're eating some greens,
Okay.
right?
So we got beans and lentils, right?
All right. So beans like navy beans, like what kind of beans? Like black eyed peas, like what kind of beans? Or like green beans, like string beans. Like what
I
kind of beans?
beans and lentils. Each bean may have a different content, but lentils have a high content. The
The black people eat lentils.
Yeah, I mean with lentil
Okay.
soup and lentil beans, black beans, brown beans.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I would have to come back with just the exact amount of calcium, but the beans are good. You can
My
get it.
family eats navy beans.
Okay,
Or
navy
like,
beans are good.
yeah.
Navy beans are good. I'm not going to argue with it with the beans. The there was we could get this from fortified food, right?
What does that mean?
Well, the like breads. So say for example, they have bread that has calcium in it,
Okay.
right?
All right. So it's something fortified with calcium. So like you can get orange juice with calcium in it,
Yeah,
right?
yes, yeah. So that's a start. And then
Okay.
it was interesting that oh gosh, I was thinking about it. The fruit. Now, did oranges have calcium in it? And a lot of people didn't know that
So why do you have to put calcium in the orange juice?
because it'll give you more. Because really, I mean,
Okay.
if we go back to milk, and off the top of my head, I was looking at it because I had to pull, I don't drink milk anymore. So I was getting like close to 300 milligrams of calcium. But, and you know how much calcium we were supposed to get, right? I mean,
No.
we're supposed to get like 1,200. If from a nutritional standpoint, just let's look at women. Women who are 50 years or younger should be getting 1,000 milligrams of calcium per day. So let's see, just that's a starting point. And women over 50 are supposed to be getting like 1,200 milligrams of calcium a day.
So who's measuring that? And obviously the lactate and all the milk products without like the non-dairy milk products.
Mhm.
Do they have calcium, or can you get them with calcium? Are they fortified?
Yeah, I mean, you could get them in calcium. So if we just look at skim milk, just 1 cup, and that's 8 ounces, right?
Mhm.
So if you were a milk drinker, just to get up to, and you're under 50, you probably have to have 5 cups of milk.
I don't know.
Right. And then if you went, I mean, that's milk. And then if you really like went to a milkshake, that's higher because that's close to almost 500 milligrams. But your soy drinks that are non-enriched for calcium, they only have 32 milligrams. Your soy
Wow.
drinks that have calcium, that they push it up to about close to 300 milligrams.
Well, you know what, Keith? And this is all great information, but when you're a working mom, when you're a single mom, I don't have time to analyze all the stuff in the grocery store. So,
No,
and
you
to
don't.
be thinking about what's on the label. And I know, I do try to read some labels, but when I'm like shopping in my mode, I'm just going to buy milk. I'm not going to sit there and try to figure out what's the best calcium milk with calcium for my family in that moment. Now,
You're just
maybe
going
if
to
I
grab
think
it
about it ahead of time, I'm gonna grab it and put it on the card and go because I got
and
other
put it on the
stuff
card
to
and go.
do.
So
Yeah.
we know that how many, so if we don't worry about the quantity, how many different items are we going to have to eat or drink in a day to reach our 1,000 milligrams a day
Right.
for
Right.
women under 50 and 1,200 milligrams a day for women over 50? So let's look at it. If you just had a cup of milk, that's going to put you at 300 milligrams. Then you got to get some yogurt or some cheese. I mean, if you got some yogurt, a cup of yogurt, that's another 300. And I know you like ice cream, so but you got
I'll get that in.
to get a little bit more in there. But your cheeses, the hard cheese. So if we look at hard cheeses, they suggest like the Parmesan or cheddar, those type of cheeses, at 1 ounce, that's close to 225 milligrams.
And that is not the little American slices where you peel the plastic back, right? What brand is that? We can't talk about the brand, but
because you can get
that's not gonna do the job.
That's not gonna do the job. And even
Or the squeezy kind and you spray.
cream
You get
cheese,
real cheese.
a tablespoon of cream cheese is 15 feta.
Mhm.
But if you're looking at the hard cheese, 1 ounce of hard cheese, that's that Parmesan, that cheddar, Gouda, that type of cheese.
Okay. All right. So we got the cheese.
You got the
We got
cheese.
the dairy. We got the dairy. We got the calcium.
Now, if you really
So-
want to go old school, and if we move over to meats and eggs, I mean, the problem is eggs have it, but eggs only have like 25 milligrams in one egg. Now, what has a lot of calcium are sardines in oil, the ones in the can.
Right. Right.
They have close to 300, over 350. And then I'm just thinking about, I said before, fruit. And this is something that I came across. Did you know dried figs have a cup of dried figs have a lot of calcium in it? They have
The
almost,
black people eat dried figs.
I don't know. We need to try. I mean, you want an
I
orange?
don't eat dried. I don't want to have dried figs.
Because
I don't want to.
if you're gonna do, if you one fruit, an orange is 50. You can't be
I'll
eating.
take an orange, but I'm not going to go eat dried figs. Okay. I don't think black people eat dried figs.
Well, what else? Then we're saying the fruits are out. because you don't want to eat a lot of fruit because they have a lot of sugar.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, I mean, if you look at raisins, I mean, an ounce of raisins, 60 raisins is basically, 25 milligrams. So then we have to go back to where we're going to get some of this stuff from. I
Yeah.
mean, when we start looking at vegetables, do you like broccoli?
I love broccoli.
Okay, well then
Broccoli's a good one.
a cup of broccoli, raw broccoli chopped, that's about 85 milligrams of calcium. And
I
that's
think what we're telling people though is that this is a math equation. Like you got to add up the pieces. You can't just get it from one source,
Mhm.
and you got to get it. So think
And-
about
and-
how you can get it.
And so if we look at all the foods that if we go through just some basic stuff, you talked about beans and lentils. We talked about that. So
Mhm.
white beans, you were right on target about your white beans because half a cup of raw white beans, that's 165.
But think about it. So I'm the mom again, okay? Think about what goes into cooking beans. I gotta soak them overnight. I
Right?
gotta put the meat in. I gotta it's a process. It's not like
It's a
something I can like
process.
throw together for dinner tonight.
But
You
they
know what I
have,
mean?
all right. But the problem is, I mean, but you do have beans that have already been canned and pressure cooked. Lentils. I mean, Trader Joe's has a good source of lentils, and
Yeah,
that's
because I'm not gonna be doing all that.
yeah. But you have the stuff that's in the store that has prepackaged steamed lentils ready to go. You just put them in
Okay.
the pan. So we know we have to get.
And they taste good. They're
Yeah,
cooked.
yeah, they taste real good. They taste
All
real
right.
okay. And then
All right.
if you really, but again, if you went with some pasta and some cheese, a cup of pasta and some cheese, now it's not if you have to balance between your caloric
Right.
intake and making sure you get adequate concentrations of calcium. And
Right.
then you can supplement it. But the first place that we're going to try to go is to kind of get your calcium from your food. If you're not lactose intolerant, you can really get, 50%
A
of
lot
your
of it comes from food.
50% of your daily requirement of calcium in 2 glasses of milk. And
And
then
then
if
you can and then you can take a pill.
Right, you could take a pill, but let's go. I mean, if you want a cup of yogurt, if you did a cup of yogurt now, milk, a cup of yogurt for lunch, you got 50% of your calcium. So when you come home for dinner, you can do, if we got your cheeses, if you got 1 ounce of cheese, now look at this. So we just balance this out. If we had milk in the morning, lunch, you may have an ounce of cheese and a yogurt snack in the middle of the day, if you're under 50, you've kind of already approached about 3/4 of your daily calcium. Now
Okay.
you can come in, you want to throw in an orange,
Yep. Or some ice cream.
or see that? I knew you were gonna come in with that. Some ice cream. Okay. Serving of almonds, walnuts. Some people
Okay.
almonds.
Nuts. You can do nuts. Okay.
Okay. We got our raw broccoli, right? I know nobody
It
likes.
can't be it can't be cooked.
I mean, it could be cooked, but you
Like
kind of
just steamed a little bit with some
that
cheese
or bland.
with some cheese sauce.
Okay. Well, now look at what you did. Now you went your broccoli, threw some cheese on there, and look at what you have. Then you've already pulled it over. You haven't eaten a lot of food, but you're
Right.
starting to approach. And then if you throw in, your calcium supplement, but I'm just looking at how to get it out of just your daily regimen until you make it home. Your snack
Right.
almonds, if you're not allergic to
Okay.
nuts.
Because I'm not going to be eating broccoli every day. So.
And so
All right. So we covered calcium. So
correct.
what else do we need? Do we need other vitamins? Like what do we need
Yeah,
to keep our
vitamin
bones
D.
up?
And see, a lot of things that people don't really recognize is that we have to understand and respect biology. And we recognize when we start talking about skin complexion, we're not talking about it from a negative perspective. We're talking about it was evolutionarily, we are the African diaspora was localized in Africa under hot climates and intense sun. So our bodies over thousands of years built up a protective mechanism. And that protective mechanism was the darkness of our skin. And if we're not out in the sun, we're not normally creating the level of vitamin D that we need. Vitamin D is
Right.
clearly important because it's demonstrated to have a protective effect. It helps the body defend. It optimizes your immune system. So it's very important from the standpoint of protecting your body against microbials and viruses, bacteria, but also physiologically, when we start talking about
Yeah.
cognitive function, all these things that the cell needs, vitamin D plays a role. And in certain cancers, it's been proven that vitamin D plays a role, has a protective effect in when it comes in the case of prostate cancer. And even a report that came out with COVID clearly demonstrated that those people who were vitamin D deficient did worse when they
And
were
yeah,
infected.
so vitamin D is more than bone health. Vitamin D is like a lifeline for many things.
Yeah,
Right.
the cell physiology. And so when we start talking about cells, I want people to understand. First thing, bones are not some kind of inanimate object. It's not like a rail or a clothes hanger. It gives structure, like these items that I'm mentioning, gives you structure, but the bones are alive. And when you think of the bones, it's not a very complicated structure, tissue. It's a tissue, even though it's hard, but there's cells that play a role. There are three cells that in the bones that orchestrate, they balance. You got one that's very important, and that's why exercise is important. And these are called
Right.
bone blasts, osteoblasts. So just to remember, there's a bone cell that it's called osteoblast. And I just get people to remember B, and remember it builds up bone. And then there's a
Okay.
osteo meaning bone, class, and that breaks down bone. So I just say C, and it cuts bone down. And then
Okay.
there's another bone called osteocyte, and it then secretes a matrix. The way to think about it is you've seen brick homes or brick buildings, and you see the bricks, but in between the bricks, that mortar that kind of sticks
The
it
gooey
together.
stuff that sticks them together. Okay.
Yeah, same concept when we start talking about bones. Now, when we exercise and we're putting a lot of pressure on our bones, then the osteoblasts continue to build bones. So the more pressure, that's why exercise is important. So we talked about the nutritional aspect, but exercise is important because the cells that build bone need to feel that
Right.
stress.
Great. And have less deterioration or build back better, right? Build back faster.
Right.
So bones are constantly losing their strength. So when you start thinking about calcium and vitamin D, what we're doing is building them back up again
Correct.
with
And
those
so
vitamins.
you're
Right.
replenishing it. And as we get
Replenishing.
older,
Thank you. Yes.
as we're getting older, we're not exercising and putting that stress on them. And then we're not eating it. I mean, think about it. You had a busy day today. And
Right.
we've talked about a lot of different foods that contain
Right.
nutrients. But what did
Right.
you have today? Are you
Well,
busy? I mean, you're busy. Today was a very busy day for you.
it was a busy day, but you know, I didn't eat breakfast. I drank my Starbucks chai, which has milk in it, so I count that.
Well, let me ask you a question. It has milk, but how much milk? 8 ounces?
A lot of milk. Oh yeah, a lot of probably 8 ounces of milk. I drink like a grande, so I'm sure it's at least 8 ounces of milk or more.
Okay. Okay.
So I get that every day because I'm an addict, right? I'm a
Okay.
total chai.
Okay. Well, then
but
we need to
then
talk. We need to talk to Starbucks and have them sponsor us so we can.
I know. So they should. I need to buy some stock in Starbucks. But really, I didn't eat any other good stuff today. I ate some string beans.
Mhm.
I ate some
Oh,
string
okay.
beans and I ate some chicken. But But
I
to be
mean,
honest with you, I didn't think about it, but I did walk. So, I walk every day because I have Harpo.
right,
So, I think people with dogs are better off for exercise because you got to walk your dog.
right,
So I always get that piece of it in, but I don't eat the right foods. I mean, I don't think about it like most people don't because we're too busy.
right.
And I think some people eat to live and some people live to eat.
Okay. And so,
I'm in the first category. I'm in the eat to live category.
my point is that we just went through, now just look how simple this was. 8 ounces of milk, okay, an ounce of cheese, a yogurt.
Yep.
You throw in some greens, some raw, so some white beans or some
Or
broccoli
some nuts or some
or
nuts.
some nuts. And so and then you supplement with calcium, you're there. But at least you're trying. What I'm saying is that we don't want people to feel bad. We want to give them to start thinking about, okay, my bones need calcium. So I'm going to identify things throughout my day that will help me approach the amount of calcium that I'm going to need each day.
Well, I mean, every day we all take our bodies for granted,
Mm-hmm.
our whole body. Like you wake up in the morning, you sit up in your bed, and you automatically think your legs are going to drop to the floor and get you walking.
Right.
And I learned the hard way that doesn't happen with cancer, and it probably doesn't happen with other diseases. But we have to start really being the CEO of our body and of our own health. We have to take responsibility. And I think that's why I love Black Doctor, because we're helping you bring this information to you. But we're also hoping we can bring it to you in a way that's palatable and not difficult to think about. So it becomes part of your routine or part of your psyche. And so I think we're giving some good tips on that. So thank you for that. But I
Right.
think that
Well,
it's
because
hard
one of the
not to
drivers,
take it for granted.
right. And I want you to, I mean, you're making a very important point here. You're saying we do take our body for granted. And so now in 2024, we're going to change that.
We
We're
are.
going
You got
to
to.
create, it doesn't have to be rigid, but a personal plan to prevent osteoporosis. I
Yeah.
mean, you have a personal plan for your car. I got to change the oil every
Right.
3 miles. Okay, I'm gonna put
Right.
air in my tires. Okay, I'm gonna get the right gas. I'm gonna vacuum it out, and I'm gonna run it to the car wash on a regular basis. Some folks don't, some folks do, but anyway. But let's
Right.
say you have this plan to prevent the breakdown of your car. What about to prevent bone loss, osteoporosis? What
Right.
lifestyle changes are you going to
Right.
make? I mean, we talked about just increasing calcium consumption. We haven't
Right.
talked about,
Right.
those things that we can control. There's a
Right.
lot of things that we can control,
There
but
are. There are that we don't
control
take
it.
that we take advantage. We don't take advantage of them. And you're right. I mean, think about how much time we do start think about our cars, or even like your phone. We're all like charging our phone and updating our phone and doing all the stuff with the phone and getting the latest iPhone and making sure you have the right battery stuff and the right plugs. But we got to really start to think about our bodies that way. And frankly, osteoporosis is something that we can control. Like, and I think they're like, how many diseases do Black people get that we have control over? Like, I mean, to an extent, we can control diabetes and heart disease and strokes and all these things by just eating differently and moving our bodies. And so
Mhm.
I think the stuff that we're talking about for osteoporosis can also apply for some of these other things that we just shouldn't take for granted and should try to handle, you know?
And, and we want people to understand the risk factors as it relates to osteoporosis. And we want people, and see, I'm from the way I was taught, and we want to educate people, want people to be aware. Tell them what you want to tell them, and I'm gonna keep on telling you, because
Right.
physical activity, let's call it out again. If you're inactive this year, you're gonna have to, I'm not gonna tell you what exercises to do, but I'm gonna ask you to start make an assessment and see how can you increase your activity. We talked about the importance of calcium. We did
Right.
talk about the importance, we didn't go into a lot of details about vitamin D, but you're gonna
Right.
you gotta talk you know, everyone, when they get their physical, ask your doctor to get your vitamin D level, especially Black people who are not outside in the sun getting enough sun to
Right,
increase vitamin D level. Because even
right,
though it's suggested 1,000 units a day for vitamin D, and with vitamin D3, we're still not at a adequate enough level in our blood. So some people may have to take a lot. So we can't tell you what to take about vitamin D, but we can ask you to talk to your doctors. How many
yeah,
people out there are smoking cigarettes? I know it may be difficult to stop or slow back, but recognize smoking cigarettes play a role, a negative impact. Alcohol. I'm not going to tell people not to drink alcohol, but everything in moderation. They suggest, from the standpoint of men, 2 glasses of alcohol a day, and ladies, 1.5 glasses. I can't tell you how much and balance out, but I bring it to your attention that alcohol ingestion plays a role. What you eat and what we did, we spent a lot of time kind of
yeah,
identify little things that you can kind of grab off the shelf, go into a store that can help you
right.
improve your calcium ingestion, and then exercise. It's important to understand your risk factors, right? For
Yep,
Black
yep.
women, why is this important for Black women?
Because we're gonna fall and die. I mean,
Well, I
we're gonna
mean,
fall and die. We're
we're
gonna
gonna
fall. We're
fall,
gonna have a worse outcome, and we're gonna die, or we're gonna
right?
be in trouble. And so, if we can control it, better, we're in a better position. So, I mean, I think we're
Right.
giving good tips. I think, it's the 1st of January. We're gonna come on every month and talk about stuff. I think the safety in your house. I think we're gonna, try to bring on some people who've had falls to talk about
Right.
how it did debilitate and change their lives. So we look forward to, more episodes. We're gonna be on the
Mhm.
first Sunday of every month for the year. And we hope that we can give you stuff that's gonna be usable for you. And it's as simple as just taking a little minute in the grocery store thinking about what am I putting into my body, and
Yeah,
not just grabbing some fast food,
and recognize and think of, and sorry for interrupting. I want to bring them back to this. If you develop a experience of fracture, will that change your lifestyle, the quality of life?
Right,
And
right.
if you have a fracture and you're the primary caregiver of the family, a single parent family, uh, how would a fracture impact your ability to work
Oh
and
my gosh.
provide?
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine
Mhm.
not being able to drive. I mean, I have to walk Harper.
Yeah,
I can't even imagine having a fall impact my life. And I saw what it did to my mom. She's a lot older, but
right.
her fall debilitated her. That's what debilitated her. And it brought out everything else she was in, all the other
Mhm.
illnesses in her body. And so we can't afford to fall. We can't afford to do that. Black women, we're too busy.
Mhm. And
We got
so,
too many things to do. I
and we
can't,
try
I can't afford that.
and we try to keep it simple.
Yeah.
With age,
Yep.
your
Yep.
bone density declines.
Right.
When your bone density declines, your chances of developing a fracture increase.
Right.
That if
That's a fact. That's a
that's a
fact.
fact.
And
Now,
that's a fact that you can control. That
that's a
you can
fact that you
say, I'm gonna work on it. And I think it starts with knowing your bone density. So
Mhm.
go to your doc, ask to be scanned, get the scan, get the information, but automatically assume that you're at risk. Do all the things that you need to do, even without the scan, but get the scan, know your number. But in the meantime, eat the right thing, do the right thing, move your body and walk and do your thing.
And then there's something else too we don't want to forget. So there's things that you obviously you can change, and then there's things that you can't change. You can't change being female. Can't
Right, right.
change being postmenopausal.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay? And then
right,
women that are very small frames. See, this is what people don't recognize. So they say, oh, people generalize, but you have Black women that are of small frames.
right.
So again, their chances small bone. Remember small bone, thin bone. Was it small bone? Big.
Yeah, we used to call each
I'm
other
a big bone.
big bone. I'm
I'm
big
big
bone,
bone.
right? I'm
Okay.
big bone.
But so I'm
That
saying
was
small. I'm saying small bone, small frame. So those are people that are at increased risk. Family history.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have
yeah,
family,
yeah,
have family history of fractures,
yeah,
right? But this is the thing about Black folks and chronic disease. I mean,
yeah.
think about how many of your friends have asthma, arthritis,
Diabetes,
diabetes, been on thyroid medication, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis.
high blood pressure.
All those things can weaken your bones. And especially kidney disease. Look at all those people that are on dialysis.
I know, dialysis or waiting for a transplant,
Yeah. And so
right?
waiting. So all of these things you can't change, but you need to change what you can change.
Right. And you can
Right.
take calcium, you can eat more calcium, you can take a supplement, you can get the vitamin D that you need, and you can walk. So
So
we can try it.
and you know what's interesting? Remember when they talk about statistics and data in the United States, we have a fabulous country which is completely distinct from these other countries. It's because we're made up of so many different people. And because we have a high caliber of research, we have the ability to pull out information about people from different ethnic groups. And then we have the ability to use that information not only to help our people in our country, but people around the world. But I was very surprised when I was looking at some of the numbers. Did you know that a quarter of the Americans have a fall each year after age 65? When they get to 65, at least one time. That your friend who fell, how old was she?
She was probably late 60s,
See?
but she's very active. So
But they're saying 1/4 of Americans,
wow, 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 wow,
65
wow.
years and older, fall each year.
All right, we got a lot to do this year.
Hmm.
So join us next month on the first Sunday of February
Hmm.
and every first Sunday of the month. And I love you, Dr. Keith.
Hey, love you, Ricky. I love our audience, and we want our audience to know, focus on nutrition, focus on exercise, and
Yep,
we're also going to give you some tips about home safety.
yep. We'll do that one next, okay? Thank you, Amgen, for supporting us. And thank you, Black Doctor, for the platform. And we will see you next time. But take care of yourself. Do the right thing. Be the CEO of your body.
And
Take
remember,
care.
love your bones.
Love your bones. Love your bones.
Bye.
Love your bones. Take care now.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
Peace. Bye.